Hello, my name is Ethan Iverson. I'm a piano player here in Brooklyn, sitting in the wonderful Soapbox Gallery. And I'm delighted to talk to one of my teachers and mentors, the very great pianist, Fred Hersch. Hello, Fred.
Hey, Ethan.
Fred, I know you've been very productive this past year in quarantine, and you even put out a new record, Songs from Home. Tell us a little bit about this CD.
It was sort of an outgrowth of something that I started to do very early on in the pandemic. My partner Scott and I live in Soho, busy part of Lower Manhattan. I've been there 41 years. When things shut down, we were fortunate enough to have a second home out in the woods in Pennsylvania, where you have visited. And we just basically went there. We're surrounded by woods and animals, and Soho at that time was very scary. Nobody really knew what was going on, how the virus was transmitted. There was no hope of a vaccine. It was a very scary period, and we went to Pennsylvania, and a few days after we got there, a friend of mine died of COVID. It was an elderly gentleman named Nathan Allman, who lived right here in Brooklyn. And he was a lifelong jazz fan, was personal friends with Miles Davis, and he and his wife, Ellen, would come always to the Village Vanguard on Sunday night. They loved the Sunday night at the Vanguard, and they would stay for both sets, and he was a guest in our home, and he died of COVID. And so I decided to do just a Facebook Live with my phone and a little microphone, and the response was really positive. People said it was kind of a nice spot in their day. So every day at 1 p.m., I did what I called a tune of the day. And at that time, I said, I'm going to do this for the duration, however long that is. But after about 6 or 7 weeks, it began to feel a little bit like a chore. So I backed off doing it. I did it once in a while when there was something I wanted to share. But then we have this miraculous recording technology now. There's a program called Logic, which is basically the professional version of the program GarageBand. And so a friend of mine, another Brooklyn pianist, Dan Tepfer, set me up with Logic. I happen to own 2 sets of very good microphones, and I have a lovely 7-foot Steinway. So I decided just to give myself something to do for one thing, but to make an album that just might bring some joy or comfort, or just some tunes that I wanted to play, some things from my childhood, some standards I liked, a couple of originals. I just wanted it to be not an easy listening album, but a very friendly, accessible album. And I recorded it. It was great. Hit R for record and space bar to stop. And I had some help in the production with a mutual friend of ours, great pianist composer Benoit Delbecq, and put it out in November. It got really a surprisingly warm and large reception. I think maybe it was just the right kind of project at this time. And it gave me something to do, and just feeling like I could put something out there during this time.
I love hearing great pianists just play in a casual moment. I think, of course, it's wonderful to hear your favorite pianist in the best situation, at the nicest piano or on the most finely tuned recording. But I also think there's room to hear a pianist just play as if they're talking to you at the dinner table. Mm-hmm. And I think Songs from Home does that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You mentioned pianists. The great Art Tatum, of course, made many studio albums, but my all-time favorite Art Tatum album it was known as Piano Discoveries, and he was playing in somebody's house in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And was recorded. So he wasn't quite as buttoned up as he might have been, and he probably didn't know he was being recorded. I've done a number of live albums where at the end of the evening, people have said, "Oh, we recorded it. I didn't even know." And so, yeah, those moments when you're not thinking about it or they're not saying, "Take 3." On the other hand, recording yourself at home, you can do unlimited performances of the same tune. So it's difficult to decide at what point you've said what you want to say, even if there might be a little flaw in it. But I'd like to think that when people listen to it, they're kind of in my living room.
Fred, I've noticed that in the last, 10 years, there's a little more and more 60s repertoire in your concerts.
Yeah. The craft of songwriting in the 60s was pretty great. I know you are a major Burt Bacharach fan, as am I.
Yes. Also a big Beatles fan.
I'm a big Beatles fan, a Joni Mitchell fan,
Right.
A Motown fan, a folk song fan. I mean, these are things that resonate from the time before I played jazz. Right. And as I've gotten older, I'm now 65, I'm becoming like a younger elder statesman. It's just nice to revisit things that have emotional resonance before I became a jazz musician. Even some songs by James Taylor, just stuff that that was really important to me when I was younger. So it's nice to play them as if they were standards, and to me they are.
Well, and you've got that Beatles When I'm 64 on Songs from Home.
Which I recorded 2 months before I turned 65, so I thought, okay, if I'm ever going to do it, this is the moment. Right?
It's sort of apropos of this discussion. I read the autobiography of Dave Frischberg. Mm-hmm. Great pianist, great songwriter, sort of a comedic master in my opinion.
Yeah.
But he was there in the 60s, and he said that everybody that was in that world was studying the 3 Bs, which were Bacharach, Beatles, and Brazilian. And you're someone also, I think, who has a very special relationship with Brazilian music.
I fell into Brazilian music early on in my time in New York. In about 1978, I was hired by this guy, this drummer, to play in a Brazilian club called Cachaça, kind of an upscale East Side Brazilian club. And little did I know that this guy, Edson Machado, is known as the Papa Joe Jones of Brazil. He was the first guy who really took the rhythms of samba and frevo and baião and put them on the jazz drum set. And so I had the chance to just learn about Brazilian music by playing it with one of the heavyweights. And in most of my concerts, including the one here today, I play often some Brazilian music, and I always play some music of Monk. Those are 2 pretty big constants in any solo concert.
When you play solo, there must be moments where it's flowing more or less. And so you must have things, if you don't have a duo partner to bounce something off, there must be something you do to be like, well, let's change my perspective to keep the fire going.
Yeah, when I'm playing solo piano, the first thing that I'm interacting with is the action of the piano and the sound of the piano in the room. I mean, that's, you play differently in a small club than you do in a beautiful concert hall. I think there is a difference. And pianos have personalities. They do things well and maybe other things not so well. And then you interact with the tune that you're playing. The beauty of solo playing is you can decide to go to another key if you get bored, or you can decide to go out of tempo if you feel like it, or you can decide, hey, I want to just hang around on this chord for a while. You don't have to cue anybody or write anything down, but it's also a little scary until you get to the point where you have the confidence to do that. One of the difficult things about solo piano is having the experience to leave a space. because there's no drums going on, there's nobody else up there. But sometimes the most beautiful things are when you can just say, I know where that is, but I'm not going to play it. And sometimes that can just open a door that you go through. And sometimes we have what I call the NLV, the nasty little voice, the little birdie on your shoulder that's saying, do this, do that, or why can't you do this, or somebody else did that, or why can't you? But you also have to have some kind of, a little bit of an overriding edit button, so that you know when to end a piece, or so that you know, okay, this has gone on long enough, I need to maybe go down here for a while, or go like this for a while, or go up here, or put one hand in my lap. So just, it's all a combination of musical and rhythmic and formal and pianistic elements that we can use. And most of them are stolen from other people in some way or another, but I think there are aspects of your style and my style that are, I would say, original and particular to us. And nobody told us how to do that. We just said, I like that. And we just kept doing it.
Well, I can't imagine there's too many other pianists who've played solo as much as you in the last 2 decades. This has really been a focus for you. And some milestones, I believe. I believe you were the first solo pianist at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
You know, and someone that's, you know, there's got to be a certain kind of confidence you have at this point, having done it so much, confronted with nobody on stage but a nice Steinway and 1,000 people begging to hear, that you actually feel, I got this. You know?
Yeah, that doesn't mean that I don't get nervous from time to time, or sometimes you have a little bit too much adrenaline. So sometimes if I have a lot of adrenaline, I'll either try to play something bright and kind of shake it off, or maybe I'll play something very slow and just get into, you know, not as a way to just kind of get into the sound and open the door to a performance. You can structure a solo concert any way you want, and of course some of the great ones, most notably Keith Jarrett, for many years just walked on stage with no preconceptions that we know of, no agenda, and he was able to create spontaneous composition at a very sophisticated level. Pianists that we might be if Keith Jarrett is one pole and Cecil Taylor might be the other pole, whose music sounds very free, but it in fact is highly organized. You know, I want to be somewhere in the middle. I want to feel like I can be open enough and also have enough structure, and it's just trying to find that balance.
Well, you love songs.
I do. I love words, as I know you do too. There's a beautiful story about the saxophone player Lester Young, who was in the studio playing a ballad and sounding absolutely beautiful, as Lester Young did 99% of the time. And in the middle of a solo, he stopped. And the producer got on the microphone and said, "Hey, Lester, what happened?" And Lester said, "I forgot the words." You know? So if you're going to play a ballad, know the words. If you're going to play a monk tune or a bebop tune, know how to play that tune correctly and know what the composer intended, no matter who it is. These are things that are important because the theme that you get is your little gift, and you have to, it's a jewel, and you need to really know it and then be able to deliver it in a personal way, and then hopefully the audience and the other musicians can understand, okay, here's my material, this is what I'm doing with it, this is the story I'm telling tonight with that tune, and then at the end it'll be hopefully transformed in some way, and you feel like you've arrived at another place. That's our goal anyway.